Welcome to this session. In this session, we will try to understand more about MAC addresses. MAC address concept we have seen in the previous sessions also. But in this session, I thought of covering this because it is a very special concept. So in this session, basically we will going to see what is MAC address. We will also try to understand, does our device have a permanent address? Is it possible that you can be tracked by someone? How each device identified globally in unique way, and how MAC address actually work, how MAC fixes one of the biggest security and privacy risk of the humankind. All these things we will try to understand and answer in this session. So let us start. So what is MAC? So MAC address, its long form is media access control address. Okay. So we know IP address, right? IP address. Now people will say that every device will be uniquely identified by the IP address. This is true to some extent, but not completely. Every device will be identified uniquely with MAC address, not IP address, because as soon as you change the network, right, your IP address will change. So IP addresses, we have two types. We have a IPv4 address, we have a IPv6 address. So IPv4 address looks like this: 192.168.1.10. This is your IP address. And IPv6 address looks like bigger, right? And why we came to IPv6 address? Because we have a lot of devices coming up in the market, lot of devices connecting to the internet. We don't have sufficient IPv4 address, so we switch to IPv6 addresses. Nowadays, if you see, right, if you do IP config, you will see that your device will have IPv4 as well as IPv6 address. Now what is MAC address? How does it look like? So MAC is a hexadecimal address. It will be denoted something like this: A4, 6B, 12. It's a 12 digit address. Okay, it's a 12-digit address. It's actually a 48-bit address. Since it's a hexadecimal, right? So this has 12 hexadecimal digits. Correct. So 12 hex digit, okay, 12 hex digit equal to 48 bits. This you can check. So where do you find the MAC address for your system? So it is very simple. You go to your command prompt, okay, do ipconfig. Now if you do ipconfig, it will only give you IPv4 and IPv6 address, right? You can see it here. You have IPv6 and IPv4 address. But to see MAC address, you need to do ipconfig/all. Now this will give you all the information. So when you do ipconfig/all, right, then it will give you the MAC address. Okay. So if you see, right, there are multiple physical address will be given. So these physical addresses are also MAC address, but these are like a different addresses given to your device. So if you want to know what is your MAC address in the Wi-Fi which you have connected, then you need to look for here Realtek Wi-Fi 6. Okay. So this is my Wi-Fi and this is my physical MAC address used by this Wi-Fi. Okay. So this is my unique address of my laptop. Okay. So this is how you will find your physical address. So these are some of the facts. Now, what is MAC address? So MAC address is actually a physical address present in that network, right? It is also called as a permanent fingerprint. It is a permanent fingerprint. Like your fingerprint will never change, right? So similar way, this is a fingerprint given to the device for Wi-Fi. So it will never change. Okay. So it is actually given by the producer. Okay. So if this device belongs to Apple, then Apple only will give that unique number, unique address, MAC address. Okay. So that will never change. So these addresses will be present on your NIC, network interface card. Okay. So if you want to connect to network, then your device should have NIC. So on that device itself, the address will be given. And we have seen the MAC address works at second layer of OSI, right? That is a data link layer. Data link layer, data link layer needs MAC address, right? However, your IP address works at a network layer. So there is a difference. I also listed down some of the differences for you so that you will be clear what is the difference between MAC address and IP address. Okay. So MAC address, as we said, is a physical hardware address given. IP address is a logical address. IP address can change. If you change the network, your IP address will change, but your MAC address will always stay same. Now, who will give the MAC address? It is burned into NIC, and NIC will be given by your manufacturer. But your IP address will be given by your ISP, Internet Service Provider. If today you are using Reliance Internet, you will have the IP address provided by Reliance. Okay, if you tomorrow if you change to Starlink, your IP address will be different. Okay, network scope. So MAC address is basically used to identify your device in the local network. Okay, but across the internet, if you want to identify your device, then you need IP address. Okay, it's similar like in the city, if I want to identify you, right, then I can identify you based on your apartment name, for example. Correct. You stay in that apartment, so apartment name is your identity, for example. Now, but it's not your final identity, right? Inside apartment, you might be staying in some flat. That flat, exact flat number is your MAC address. Okay. So here comes a local network. Inside the apartment, there will be network, for example. Correct. So that is the thing. So changeability. MAC address doesn't change. For Wi-Fi, it is constant. For Bluetooth, if you generate a Bluetooth network, right? If you connect to Bluetooth device, then for Bluetooth device, you will also have a different MAC address provided by your manufacturer. So what kind of networks? What all are different kind of network your system, your device is capable of joining, right? All will have a MAC addresses. Okay. So IP address can change. Device usage used by switches and used by router. So IP address we have seen works at network level, routers work at network level. So layer 3 uses it, switches nowadays. Now you might ask, where do I use it? Where I am using router, I am not using switch at home, right? But your router itself has a capability of switches nowadays. That's why you will not see it separately. But there is a component called switch which helps at the second layer of OSI. Okay. So in nutshell, IP address is a logical address, and MAC is a physical address. Physical address. Now, let us try to understand a real life example. Okay, real life example. Now you have a laptop. Okay, you and here is your printer. Okay, this is a printer. Now you want to send the file to printer. How this thing will work? Now this is also a kind of network, if you see, right? Now this this device also connected to Wi-Fi, this device also connected to your Wi-Fi. So they both are in the Wi-Fi network. So what happens is your laptop uses ARP, that is the address resolution protocol. It's a kind of protocol to figure it out the address of the other devices. Okay. So it uses ARP and figure it out. As soon as you give print command, right, it will identify the printers present. So it uses ARP to figure it out, the MAC address of your printer. Okay. Now there is a switch functionality which will figure it out at what port this printer is listening to, port number. Okay. And to that port number, your laptop will send the request and they will communicate this way. So how it works? Your laptop uses ARP, figure it out the MAC address, Then as soon as your device, your laptop has identified the printer uniquely, then it will figure it out which port the printer is listening to, and accordingly it will send the document and the printer will print it. So this is the way real life it will work. Now let us try to understand, does devices have permanent address? Till now, if you are listening to me, you will say yes, yes, there is a permanent address. So this is right to some extent. Again, MAC address is a permanent address, but in some cases, some exceptions, there are also some exceptions. Every rule has exception, right? So here also some exceptions are there. All your devices like laptops, then your smartwatches, your machines, washing machine, fridge, if they are smart, all will have MAC addresses which are unique and can be identified globally. But your mobile will have a MAC address, but it has a capability to change the MAC address. That is the beauty. MAC address. Okay. So mobile can have a different MAC addresses in some cases. Now why it is done? Now this thing is done to avoid the security threat, security risk, security risk and privacy risk. Okay. So what could have happened? Now just imagine that you have a device. You have a device. Sorry, let's take it as a mobile only. Okay. So you have a mobile device. This is mobile. Okay. You have a unique address. Now this is you. This is your mobile. Okay, you are holding. So you have this mobile. Today you are at home. You have a unique address MAC. Correct? You have a unique MAC address. Now you move to mall. You hold your mobile here again. Then you move to different city altogether. You still use the same mobile. Now, if somebody has your MAC address and if you are changing the network, is it possible that the hacker guy who is sitting outside can track your location, understand your pattern? Right? It's definitely possible. So that's why mobile has given the functionality to change the MAC address as soon as you change the network. So this is called as MAC spoofing concept or MAC randomization. Okay, MAC randomization. This functionality you can check in your Android mobile or any mobile, it will be there. But in Android, I will tell you, if you go to Wi-Fi, right? If you go to the network which is connected, in that network, you will see MAC randomization. You can enable it so that every network, whenever you change your location, your MAC address will get changed. So this is the only case where your MAC address will change, but underlying your mobile still have a unique MAC. Okay. But when you move to the other network, it pretends that it will have a different MAC. That's how it actually works. Okay. Now, one more question I want to answer, that is, we were having initially IP addresses, IPv4 addresses. Then we realized that those are not sufficient because everybody has a device. We move to IPv6. Now we are telling that every device has a MAC address. Now we have a lot of device. Is it possible that we will run out of MAC addresses? Run out of MAC addresses? Then that is not possible. We have told, right? We have seen MAC address is a 48-bit address. So if you see how many MAC addresses can be present, then it is 2 raised to 48 MAC addresses combinations can be possible. So 2 raised to 48, you know how much it will become? I calculated for you. It's a 281 trillion. So 281 trillion devices if exist on the earth, then the next device will not have the MAC address, but that will never possible. So when this situation will come, when every person, every human will have 35,000 plus devices. then only you will reach based on the current population. If everybody has 35k plus devices, then only we can attain 281 trillion devices, and that will never possible, right? So there is no shortage of MAC addresses. Now how MAC addresses will be given, that is also good to understand. So we have seen, right, our MAC address is a 48 bit address. So first 24 and second 24. So this first 24 will be given to the manufacturer. This is the first 24 block will be given to the manufacturer. So this block, if you are a Apple customer, for you it will be constant. If you have two devices, you will see this is constant for both the device. Only changing is this two. So every company will have 2 raised to 24 different MAC addresses available. In case they design this many devices, they run out of this 2 raised to 24, then they can register for another block and they still get 2 raised to 24 again. So this way each company can get lot of MAC addresses. So there is an enormous address space in the MAC, and manufacturers usually reuse internally unused blocks. Okay. So, and MAC randomization concept we have seen, right? Now you will say MAC randomization is also happening. But MAC randomization uses special type of addresses. That is the local addresses. Okay. They don't consume from the real manufacturer assigned addresses. So MAC addresses, it's rarely possible that we will run out of MAC addresses. So even if today every company on the earth who produces devices, if every year we develop 50 billion devices every year, 50 billion, which is very unlikely, then next 100 years it needs to reach the 281 trillion. So huge space. Okay, so that's how the Mac actually works. So these are some of the interesting fact about the MAC address. So what all are we have seen? Let's revise. So MAC is a unique address. MAC is a physical address. IP is a logical address. MAC is a 48-bit address. First 24-bit will be assigned to the manufacturer. Rest 24 can be given to the devices. Then there is a concept of MAC randomization, where the devices like mobile will be given the functionality of MAC randomization. MAC spoofing means as soon as the mobile change the network, the MAC address will change, right? MAC address works at data link layer, IP address works at network layer. Then what else we have seen? All these things we have seen. MAC address helps to prevent security risk, privacy risk, correct? So all these things we have seen and understood in this session. If you like this session, do subscribe to this channel and please share this video with your friends if you think it has some value, right? So stay tuned, guys.